Choosing the right fishing rod can be the difference between a great day on the water and going home empty-handed. Whether you're just starting out or looking to upgrade your gear, there are a few key things you need to know before buying a fishing rod, and I'm going to break them all down. Let's dive in. When it comes to choosing a fishing rod, there are endless options, different brands, different rod lengths, different line classes, and then you've got your general purpose rods and your specialized rods, graphite, fiberglass, and it can all very quickly become really overwhelming. So how do you narrow it down? And the answer is, it depends on the type of fishing you're doing. If you're just going to be bait fishing, then a general purpose 7 foot to 8 foot rod with a line class of about 2 to 4, 3 to 6, or 4 to 8 kilo is pretty much all you need. But what most people don't realize is your rod choice will directly impact what size reel and what class line you're going to have to use. So for example, if you go with the 2 to 4 kilo fiberglass rod, the most suitable reel for that class rod would be a 2000 or a 2500 size reel, depending on whether you're using braid or mono for your line. That 2 to 4 kilo rating on your rod is referring to the manufacturer's recommended line class. So basically, the people that make the rod want you to use a line between 2 kilo and 4 kilo, which is 4 to 8 pound. But once you get into all your more specialized rods, like your graphite rods, the main determining factor of which rod is most suitable becomes the actual cast weight of the rod. So for example, this graphite rod is also rated 2 to 4 kilos, but you'll notice it's got a 3 to 10 gram cast weight, which means anything below 3 grams won't cast very well, and anything over 10 grams risks breaking the tip of your rod. That's why once you're looking at graphite or specialized rods, you have to follow the cast weight. When you're fishing from rocks, you generally want a rod with a length of 9 foot up to about 11 or 12 foot maximum. So let's say, for example, you chose this 9'6" rod for your rock fishing. Now this rod's line rating is PE 3 to 5, which is roughly 30 to 50 pound, depending on the braid. You can get PE 5 braids that break at 90 pound. So it's very, very important you check your actual braid. And you'll notice a cast weight of 50 to 120 grams. So if you're just trying to spin little metals off the rocks that weigh less than 50 grams, you're not going to get a very good cast. But then if you're trying to throw a huge 250 gram popper when your rod's only rated to 120 gram max cast weight, you're going to snap your tip. That's why it's so important to make sure you factor in the type of fishing you're going to be doing before you choose your rod. So that way you can get the rod with a suitable cast weight and a suitable line class. If you were to go with this rod with a PE rating of 3 to 5 for your line class, the matching reel size would be either an 8,000 or a 10,000 size reel. Otherwise, your rod and reel would feel off balance. It'll just feel bottom heavy, or maybe even top heavy if your reel is too small. Whereas if you're fishing off a beach, you normally want a minimum 10 foot rod, and if it's a rough beach, you probably even use a 12 or 13 foot rod. So you can make sure that you're keeping your line above where the waves are breaking. Otherwise your line will just keep coming back all tangled and it just becomes a nightmare pretty much. So let's say, for example, you went with this 12 foot rod for all your beach fishing. Now this rod has a minimum cast weight of 90 grams and a maximum cast weight of 160 grams. What you need to make sure you keep in mind is all these cast weights on all the graphite rods we're looking at is the combined total cast weight. So that'll be your bait plus your sinker, or the total weight of your lure plus anything else you might have attached to it. It's combined total cast weight. So if you're fishing off a beach with a big bait as well as a heavy sinker because of rough water conditions, this rod with a combined total cast weight of 160 gram max might not be suitable, which means you might have to consider a different rod. So for example, this rod is a 13 foot rod with a line class of 20 to 30 kilos and a cast weight of 100 to 250 grams. A rod like this might be way more suitable for a bigger bait and a heavier sinker if you're fishing a rough beach. Alternatively, you could consider a 12 foot fiberglass rod. So for example, this rod is also a 12 footer with a line class of 15 to 24 kilo, but you'll notice there's no minimum or maximum cast weights. That's because generally fiberglass rods don't really have cast weights. Fiberglass rods are a lot more difficult to break. You pretty much have to neglect it or misuse it to break it. Unlike graphite, where the minimum and maximum cast weights play a major role. But if you're fishing a calmer beach, you could use a lighter graphite rod like this, 11 foot, 20 to 60 gram cast weight, 7 to 15 kilo line class. If you keep in mind that your rod choice will impact your reel size, as well as how heavy your line needs to be, it makes it much easier for you to choose when you're thinking about what type of fishing you're actually planning on doing. So for example, with those heavier 12 and 13 footer rods, you're going to have to use an 8 or 10,000 size reel with a 40 or 50 pound braid, or a 30 or 40 pound mono. Whereas if you go with that lighter 11 foot rod, you can get away with a 5 or 6,000 size reel and a 20 or 30 pound braid, or a 20 pound mono. That's why it's really important to take all these things into account when you're going to buy your next rod. I hope you guys found this video helpful, and I'll catch you in the next one.